Let me ask you something. How many times in your life have you been convinced that something was the end, that it was over, that you weren't going to recover, and yet somehow you did? Think back. A heartbreak, a job you thought you lost forever, financial mess that seemed impossible to escape, a moment where you didn't know how you'd move forward, but here you are. You made it through. You're breathing. You're standing. You survived what you once thought you couldn't. Now imagine if you lived every day with that truth at the center of your mind, that no matter what happens, no matter how dark it looks, everything is always working out for you. Not just sometimes, not just when it's convenient, always. What would change in your energy? What would shift in your confidence? What doors would open that right now you're too afraid to even knock on? I want you to lean in today, because what I'm about to share with you is not just a motivational idea. It's a mindset that reprograms how you face life itself. If you stay with me until the end of this, you won't just believe that everything always works out for you. You'll feel it, you'll own it, and you'll start living it. And from that place, life stops happening to you and it starts happening for you. Think about this for a second. Every single one of us is walking around with a story in our head, a story about who we are, about what's possible, about what we deserve, about what we'll never have. And here's the truth most people don't realize. It's not the events of your life that shape you. It's the meaning you attach to those events. It's the story you tell yourself about what those events mean. Two people can go through the exact same experience and come out completely different. One will say, this destroyed me. The other will say, this made me unstoppable. The event was the same, but the story changed everything. Everything always works out. For me, mindset starts with rewriting that inner story. Because for most people, their story is rooted in fear, in doubt, in past failures. They've rehearsed over and over again the idea that they're unlucky, that life is unfair, that the world is against them. And guess what? If that's your story, your brain will find evidence for it everywhere you look. You'll train your nervous system to notice the pain, to notice the setbacks, to notice the doors that close instead of the ones that open. You'll start filtering reality in a way that keeps reinforcing your old identity. But the moment you change the story, everything shifts. Imagine carrying around a story that says, no matter what, things are aligning for me. No matter how chaotic it looks right now, this is setting me up for something bigger. That story gives you power in the middle of the storm. That story keeps you standing tall when other people collapse. That story becomes the lens that filters everything that happens to you. And suddenly, instead of living in fear, you live in anticipation. Instead of asking, why me? You start asking, what's the gift here? What's the lesson? How is this preparing me for what I said I wanted? Most people think their story is permanent. They say, well, I've always been this way. I've always struggled with money. I've always been unlucky in relationships. I've always failed at starting things. And they don't realize that's not truth. That's repetition. That's a pattern that's been played so many times in their nervous system it feels real, but it's not the only option. The brain is like a record player, and you've just been playing the same scratched up song over and over again. The moment you decide to change the record, to install a new story, you change the music of your life. Here's what's fascinating. The brain doesn't need proof before it believes a new story. It needs repetition, emotion, and conviction. You don't have to wait until life proves that everything always works out for you to start believing it. You decide first, you condition that belief, and then you watch as life starts aligning to that decision. People say, well, that sounds like lying to myself. No, it's not lying. It's choosing which story you want to live into. Because both stories exist. You can focus on the times things fell apart, or you can focus on the times you made it through. You can focus on the pain, or you can focus on the strength it gave you. Both are true, but only one story will set you free. Think back to your own life. There were times when you thought you wouldn't recover, but you did. There were times you thought you were done, but you weren't. There were moments you were sure the door was shut forever. Then another door opened that you couldn't have seen from where you were standing. If you build your story around those moments, around the evidence that life keeps finding a way to pull you forward, then suddenly your nervous system starts trusting life instead of resisting it. That trust turns into confidence. That confidence turns into energy. And that energy creates a completely different outcome than the person who's living in fear. You change your inner story. You're not ignoring reality. You're upgrading your reality, because reality isn't just what happens. It's how you interpret it. It's how you show up when it happens. If your story is that everything is rigged in your favor, you show up with a different posture, with different decisions, with a different level of courage. That posture influences people. That courage attracts opportunities. That energy draws people to you who want to help you, invest in you, support you. And suddenly, what looked like luck isn't luck at all. It's alignment. It's the natural byproduct of living in a new story. I'll tell you right now, the people who create extraordinary lives aren't the ones who had the perfect circumstances. They weren't born with more resources or less problems. They simply chose a different story. They chose to believe that life was happening for them, not to them. They chose to believe that even in the darkest moment, something was unfolding that would eventually serve them. They rehearsed that story until it became automatic. And once it became automatic, it became identity. And once it became identity, They no longer had to think about it. They just lived it. The question is, what story are you rehearsing right now? If the story is, I can't catch a break, then guess what? That becomes your reality. If the story is, no matter what, I figure it out, then that becomes your reality too. The story is the seed, the belief is the soil, and your actions are the sunlight and water. If you want a different harvest, you don't curse the soil. You don't complain about the rain. You plant a new seed, you choose a new story, and the beauty is you don't need permission to do it. You don't need the world to suddenly agree with you. You don't need a perfect plan laid out. You need a decision, a moment where you say, enough of the old story, enough of playing small, enough of convincing myself that life is against me. From this moment forward, everything always works out for me, even if I don't understand how, even if it doesn't look like it in the moment. I trust that it's happened for me. And when you live from that space, you stop living in reaction and you start living in creation. So as you sit here right now, I want you to imagine what if you carried that story into every single area of your life, into your relationships, into your health, into your career, into your finances. How would you approach challenges differently if the story was already decided, if the outcome was already guaranteed to work in your favor? How much more would you risk? How much more would you love? How much more would you contribute if you knew the universe was conspiring to back you up? That's the power of shifting your inner story. It's not just about thinking positive. It's about claiming a new identity, rehearsing it until it becomes automatic, and letting that story pull you into a life you never thought possible. Because the moment you change your story, you change your life. Expectation is one of the most powerful forces in your life. What you expect, you invite. What you expect, you notice. What you expect, you create. And the challenge for most people that they expect too much and are disappointed, it's that they expect too little and are never surprised. They've trained themselves to expect struggle, to expect setbacks, to expect that life will be harder for them than it is for anyone else. And if that's the expectation, you don't even realize it. Your mind is already building the evidence to prove it true. Think about how your brain works. It's a meaning-making machine. Out of billions of bits of information that you could notice every single second, brain filters down to a tiny fraction, a sliver, based on what it thinks matters most to you. And what tells it what matters most, your expectations. If you expect things to go wrong, your mind is scanning the environment, picking up every detail that confirms it. If you expect people to betray you, you'll interpret the smallest gesture as proof. If you expect opportunities to pass you by, you won't even notice the doors that are open right in front of you. Now flip it. Happens when you expect that everything is aligning in your favor. You begin to look for proof of that expectation. You begin to notice the small coincidences, the subtle opportunities, the people who suddenly appear in your life at the right time. You don't dismiss it as chance, you see it as confirmation, and every time you find confirmation, that expectation grows stronger. It's like building a muscle. At first it feels weak, maybe even unrealistic, but the more you train it, more undeniable it becomes. The truth is, expectation shapes behavior. If you walk into a room expecting to be ignored, you carry yourself differently. You shrink, you don't make eye contact, you don't initiate conversations. When people don't respond, you say, see, I knew it. But if you walk into that same room expecting to connect, expecting people to be drawn to your energy, you stand taller, you speak with more confidence, you radiate presence. People respond to that. They can't help it. The difference wasn't the room. The difference wasn't the people. The difference was your expectation. And this isn't about pretending bad things don't exist. Challenges will come. Pain will come. Life is not about avoiding them. It's about what you expect to happen because of them. Most people expect pain to mean the end. They expect challenges to mean failure. But when you expect that everything is working out for you, even the pain becomes part of the plan. You expect it to be temporary. You expect it to prepare you. You expect it to open doors you couldn't have seen otherwise. That expectation shifts your nervous system from fear into anticipation. Instead of shutting down, you lean in. Instead of giving up, you search for the meaning. And here's the beauty: expectation doesn't just influence your perception, it influences your actions. If you expect that no matter what, you're going to figure it out, then you approach problems with creativity, with persistence, with resilience. You make one more call. You try one more angle. You stay in the game longer than the person who expected failure from the start. Life rewards persistence. Life rewards the ones who refuse to back down simply because their expectation is that the breakthrough is inevitable. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to have all the luck? It's not luck. It's the power of expectation. They're walking through life expecting doors to open, so they're not afraid to knock. They're expecting to meet the right people, so they're not afraid to introduce themselves. They're expecting the solution to appear, so they don't quit when the first plan falls apart. That expectation creates momentum, and momentum creates results that look like luck to everyone else. Your expectations are a prophecy. They're not just thoughts, they're instructions you give to your brain and body. When you expect to fail, you unconsciously pull back your effort. You hesitate. You protect yourself. And in protecting yourself, you sabotage yourself. You expect to win. You give more. You risk more. You believe more. And in doing so, you tilt the odds in your favor. I'll give you an example. Think about a time in your life when you just knew something was going to work. Maybe it was a test you studied for. Maybe it was a game you played. Maybe it was a conversation you were preparing for. You walked in with absolute certainty. And because of that certainty, you didn't second guess yourself. You didn't hold back. You didn't hesitate, and you performed at your peak. That's the power of expectation. It unlocks your best self. The danger is that most people are running on unconscious expectations. They don't even realize the beliefs they're carrying because they've repeated them for so long they feel automatic. They wake up expecting to be tired, and so they are. They expect work to drain them, and so it does. They expect relationships to disappoint them, and so they do. But here's the gift. You can rewire those expectations. You can choose them. You can install a new belief system the same way you would install new software on your phone. It takes intention. It takes repetition. It takes emotion. But once you install it, it runs automatically. And the expectation that everything always works out for you is the ultimate upgrade. It doesn't mean you'll never face storms. It means you expect that every storm is carrying you to clearer skies. It doesn't mean you'll never feel pain. It means you expect the pain to become part of your strength. It doesn't mean you'll never be challenged. It means you expect the challenge to shape you into someone greater than you were before. That expectation is magnetic. It pulls you toward solutions. It pulls you toward courage. It pulls you toward the version of yourself that you're meant to be. So let me ask you right now, what are you expecting from your life? Are you expecting things to work out only when they're easy, only when conditions are perfect? Or are you willing to stand in the fire with the expectation that even here, even now, life is aligning for you? Because if you can hold that expectation in the fire, you'll come out stronger, sharper, more unshakable than you ever imagined. And once you make that shift, once you decide to live with that expectation, you'll start to notice something. The world responds differently to you. Opportunities show up. People show up. Solutions reveal themselves, not because they weren't there before, but because your expectation tuned your mind to see them. Energy gave you the courage to pursue them, and your belief gave you the patience to wait for them. Expectation is not wishful thinking. It's not sitting back hoping. It's an active force. It's a decision you make about what must happen. Then you align your energy, your focus, and your behavior with that decision. And when you do, you create a life that feels like it's conspiring in your favor. So remember this, what you expect, you attract, you notice, you create. Expect the best, you will live into the best. One of the greatest traps people fall into is letting their circumstances dictate their state, their identity, and their future. They look at what's happening right now and they assume it defines what's possible for them. The bank account is low, they start believing they're broke. If a relationship falls apart, they decide they're unworthy of love. If a business fails, they convince themselves they're not meant to succeed. They don't realize that the moment you let your circumstances tell your story, you've already given away your power. You've anchored yourself to what is instead of what can be. Circumstances are temporary. They're snapshots in time, feedback, but they're not final. And yet, most people live as if their circumstances are permanent. They're slaves to the moment. If something good happens, they feel good. If something bad happens, they collapse. They live on a roller coaster of emotion because their anchor isn't their vision. It's their environment. And the environment is always changing. But here's what separates the ones who create extraordinary lives. They don't anchor themselves to circumstances. They anchor themselves to vision. They decide who they are and where they're going regardless of what's happening around them. Their focus is on the destination, not the detour. They don't get lost in the storm because their eyes are locked on the horizon. And when you live that way, you become unshakable. Think about the times in your life when everything around you looked like it was falling apart. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you faced a health crisis. Maybe you went through heartbreak. In the middle of it, it felt like the end. But if you zoom out, if you look back with perspective, you can see that those circumstances weren't permanent. They were chapters, setups for something else. They were part of the path. At the time, you couldn't see it, but the vision, the bigger picture, was still unfolding. When you anchor yourself to vision, you stop reacting to life and you start directing life. Circumstances become data, not destiny. If the business fails, it's data. If the relationship ends, it's data. If the plan falls apart, it's data. But your vision remains intact. And because your vision is intact, you keep moving. You pivot, you adapt. You use the feedback, but you don't let it define you. That's how breakthroughs happen. Not by worshiping circumstances, but by using them as stepping stones toward the bigger picture. And here's the paradox. The more you detach from circumstances, you actually have to change them. When you're obsessed with the current problem, you're blinded by it. You magnify it. You lose creativity. You lose resourcefulness. You lose energy. But when you zoom out and anchor in a vision, you rise above the problem. From that higher perspective, solutions that seemed invisible start to appear. You access a different level of intelligence because you're no longer trapped in fear. Life will test you. Test your commitment to your vision by throwing circumstances at you that seem designed to break you. And in those moments, most people fold. They let the circumstance convince them the vision was unrealistic, that they were dreaming too big, that they should settle. But the ones who win are the ones who hold the vision tighter in the storm. They say, this is just part of the path. This isn't the end. This is redirecting me, refining me, preparing me. And that's exactly what happens. because vision has a gravitational pull. If you stay locked on it long enough, life bends itself to align with it. You have to decide what's going to be bigger in your life, your circumstances, or your vision. If circumstances are bigger, you'll always be at their mercy. You'll always be a victim of the economy, of other people's choices, of the weather, of traffic, of whatever's in front of you. But if your vision is bigger, you'll bend circumstances to your will. Find a way through, over, around, or under them because the vision demands it. Circumstances may slow you down, but they cannot stop you unless you let them. And the truth is, circumstances change faster than we think. That low bank account today can be abundance a year from now. That rejection today can be the redirection to the opportunity of a lifetime. That painful ending can be the foundation for a new beginning you couldn't have imagined. Only if you don't quit. Only if you refuse to define yourself by what's happening in this moment. Only if you keep your eyes locked on the vision. There's a kind of freedom that comes from detaching from circumstances. It's not indifference. It's not pretending problems don't exist. It's refusing to let them own you. It's refusing to let them dictate your emotions, your identity, or your decisions. It's standing tall in the middle of chaos and saying, this doesn't define me. This doesn't break me. This is part of the journey, and I will use it to become more. That posture changes how you move through the world. And that posture creates a different outcome than the person who collapses at the first sign of adversity. So right now, ask yourself, where have you been letting circumstances dictate your life? Where have you been saying, I'll feel confident when the money comes, I'll feel worthy when the relationship arrives, I'll feel secure when the business succeeds? That's backwards. You don't wait for circumstances to give you permission. You generate confidence, finesse, security from within by anchoring to the vision of who you're becoming. And when you live from that place, the circumstances eventually catch up. That's the real secret. Circumstances follow vision, not the other way around. If you wait for the world to change before you change, you'll be waiting forever. But if you commit to the vision first, the world has no choice but to shift around you. It may not happen overnight. It may not happen on your timeline, but it happens. Because vision is magnetic, vision pulls resources, people, and opportunities into your orbit. And the ones who seem unstoppable are simply the ones who refuse to let temporary conditions make them forget their permanent vision. The next time life throws something at you that feels overwhelming, I want you to pause and ask yourself, is this circumstance going to own me, or am I going to own it? Am I going to collapse into it, or am I going to rise above it? Am I going to let this moment define me, or am I going to let my vision define me? That choice will determine everything, because the moment you stop letting circumstances write your story and you anchor into vision instead, you become unshakable. One of the biggest shifts you can ever make in your life is how you see setbacks. Most people think a setback is proof they're not good enough, proof they don't have what it takes, proof that maybe they should give up. They treat it like a wall and ending a closed door that means the dream wasn't meant for them. But the truth is, setbacks aren't stop signs, they're signals. They're setups in disguise. They're invitations to grow, to stretch, to develop strength and wisdom you could never get if everything went perfectly from the start. Think about it. What has actually shaped you the most in life? Was it the times when everything went smoothly? When there were no problems? The path was straight and easy? No. Those moments are comfortable, but they don't make you. It's the times when you were knocked down and had to get back up. It's the failures that forced you to learn a new skill, the heartbreak that made you discover your own worth, the rejection that pushed you to a path you wouldn't have chosen otherwise. The very moments you once thought were the worst turned out to carry the seeds of your best. That's what happens when you stop seeing setbacks as curses and start seeing them as setups. And here's what most people don't realize. Life is always training you. Every setback is preparation. Every challenge is a weight in the gym of your soul. You don't build strength by lifting something light. You build strength by lifting what's heavy. In the same way, you don't build resilience, creativity, or courage in easy times. You build it when you're forced to dig deep. You're backed against the wall when quitting looks easier, but you choose to rise anyway. That's where the transformation happens. But if your story is, this setback means I'm not good enough, then you miss the gift. You miss the lesson. You miss the setup, and you repeat the same patterns again and again because life doesn't stop giving you the lesson until you learn it. The moment you change the story to this setback is here to prepare me, to redirect me, to make me stronger, suddenly the very thing that once broke you starts building you. That perspective doesn't just get you through pain. It transforms the pain into power. Heard stories of people who faced unbelievable setbacks, losing everything, failing multiple times, going through devastating personal challenges. And instead of collapsing, they used those moments to reinvent themselves. They took the pain and turned it into purpose. They used the setback as fuel. And eventually, those stories inspire millions of others. Why? Because we all know deep down that setbacks are universal. Everyone faces them. The difference is what you do with them. If you decide setbacks are the end, then you collapse at the very moment you were supposed to rise. But if you decide setbacks are setups, you lean in. You ask different questions. Instead of, why is this happening to me? You ask, how is this serving me? What is this teaching me? How is this redirecting me to something greater? And when you ask those questions, your brain finds answers. It finds meaning. It finds solutions. Here's the beauty. When you start interpreting setbacks as setups, you stop fearing them. You stop playing small just to avoid failing. Most people live in a box of comfort, never risking, never stretching, because deep down they're terrified of setbacks. They're terrified of looking stupid, of being rejected, of failing publicly. But the moment you embrace setbacks as part of the setup, you're no longer afraid of them. You know they're coming. You know they're necessary. You know they're preparing you. So instead of hiding, you step out, you take bigger risks. You play a bigger game. And because of that, you create results other people only dream about. Think of a slingshot. If you've ever pulled one back, you know the farther it's pulled backward, the farther it launches forward. That's how setbacks work. The pullback creates the momentum for the launch. If you resist the pullback, if you see it only as pain, you miss the potential of the launch. But if you embrace it, if you trust that the backward stretch is creating forward power, then you start to see setbacks differently. You start to realize that the moments you feel furthest from your goal are often the very moments you're being positioned for the biggest leap forward. The question is, will you hold on through the pullback? Because most people quit right there. They feel the stretch, the tension, the resistance, and they say, this is too much, I can't do it. And they let go too soon. But the ones who hold on, the ones who stay the course, the ones who trust the process, they're the ones who experience the launch. They look back later and say, that moment that felt like it was breaking me was actually the moment setting me up for everything I have now. So right now, you to think about the setbacks in your life, the moments you thought were failures, the seasons you thought were endings. What did they give you? What strength, what skill, what clarity, determination did you gain that you wouldn't have gained otherwise? Because once you see it, you realize those setbacks weren't punishments. They weren't preparation. They weren't barriers. They were bridges. This is the mindset that changes everything. When you adopt it, you stop being fragile. You stop living in fear of what might go wrong. Instead, you lean into life with boldness because you know that even when things look like they're going wrong, they're actually moving you toward what's right. Even when a door closes, another one is opening. Even when you're delayed, you're being positioned. Even when you're rejected, you're being redirected. That certainly gives you unstoppable confidence. The truth is, the size of your dreams will always be matched by the size of your setbacks. If you want to play a bigger game, you will face bigger challenges. That's not punishment. That's proportion. Life gives you the obstacles that match the level of the destiny you're called to. The only question is, will you interpret them as signs to shrink back or as setups to step forward? Because once you make that shift, once you train your nervous system to expect that every setback is secretly a setup, you stop hesitating, you stop holding back, you move forward with trust, with energy, with persistence. And in the end, very challenges that once scared you become the fuel that launches you. So remember this, the setback you're facing right now is not the end. It's the beginning of a setup for something greater. Belief is powerful. It's the foundation. It's the starting point. But belief without aligned action is nothing more than a dream. Too many people confuse hope with commitment. They think if they just sit back and believe hard enough, life will magically hand them everything they want. That's not how it works. Belief is the spark, action is the fire. Belief sets the direction, action makes it real. And when you align your actions with the belief that everything always works out for you, that's when momentum builds, that's when results show up, that's when your life begins to shift in ways that feel unstoppable. I've seen people who say, I believe I can have more, I believe life is working out for me, but their actions are still rooted in fear. They hesitate, they procrastinate, they play small, and deep down, that's misalignment. If you truly believe things are working for you, then your actions should reflect that belief. You would take the shot. You would make the call. You would start the project. You would step out boldly because the belief has already convinced you the outcome is inevitable. When you align action with belief, you no longer act out of desperation, you act out of certainty. That changes your energy. Think about it. Imagine two people starting a business. One says, they're tentative, they're unsure, they're dipping their toe in the water. Their energy communicates doubt and people can feel it. The other says, I know this is going to work out. It may not look perfect right away, but everything is aligning. That person moves differently. They invest more. They speak with confidence. They carry themselves with certainty. And that certainty attracts customers, partners, investors. It's not magic. It's alignment. But here's the key. Action has to be consistent. You can't take one bold step and then go back to hesitation. You can't believe for a week and then let your old patterns run the show again. Conditioning belief requires repetition, and the same is true for action. You train your nervous system what you repeatedly do. If you keep acting out of fear, you reinforce fear. If you keep acting in alignment with your belief, you reinforce certainty. Time, it becomes automatic. Now, aligning your actions doesn't mean every step will be perfect. It doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. It means you show up fully regardless. You trust that even the wrong steps are part of the right path. You don't get paralyzed by perfection because you know progress beats perfection every single time. Action creates feedback. And that feedback is what allows you to adjust, to grow, to evolve into the person who can handle the vision you've declared. Think about it. How many times have you been waiting for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect resources? And in that waiting, what happens? Time passes. Momentum dies. Opportunities slip away. You tell yourself you're being careful, but what you're really doing is hiding. Because when you believe that everything always works out for you, you don't wait for perfect conditions. You move now. You trust that the action will reveal the path, that resources will show up. Once you're in motion, that clarity will come after you step forward. Waiting keeps you stuck. Moving creates flow. And here's something most people don't understand. Aligned action doesn't just prove your belief to the world, it proves it to yourself. Every time you take action consistent with the story that everything works out for you, you reinforce that identity. You show your nervous system, see, this is who I am now. And the more you act from that place, the more congruent it becomes. Eventually, it's not something you're trying to believe anymore. It's simply who you are. You are the person who moves boldly. You are the person who acts with certainty. You are the person who knows the universe is backing them up. That's identity, and identity drives destiny. But let's get real. There will be moments when you don't feel like taking action. Will be days when doubt creeps in, when circumstances look overwhelming, when fear whispers in your ear. And in those moments, the easiest thing in the world is to shrink back, to wait, to tell yourself you'll move when you feel ready. That's not alignment. Alignment is acting from belief, even when the feelings don't match. It's doing the thing anyway, not because you're fearless, but because your belief is bigger than your fear. That's the secret. You don't wait to feel confident before you take action. You take action and confidence follows. You don't wait until you have certainty to move. You move and certainty grows. Confidence is not the prerequisite, it's the result. The only way you get it is by aligning your behavior with the belief you've chosen to live by. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you acted every single day as if everything was already working out for you? Imagine the level of energy you'd bring into your work. Imagine the way you'd show up in your relationships. Imagine the risks you'd be willing to take, the opportunities you'd be willing to chase. How fast would your life change if you stopped waiting, stopped hesitating, stopped doubting, and simply aligned your actions with the belief you've declared? Because here's the reality: life responds to action. It doesn't respond to wishes. It doesn't respond to excuses. It doesn't respond to the story you keep telling yourself about what you're going to do someday. It responds when you move. It responds when you step up. It responds when you act in alignment with what you've decided is true. So if you believe that everything always works out for you, prove it with your actions. Live like it. Move like it. Speak like it. Show up like it. Don't just say it, embody it. Because when belief and action merge, you become unstoppable. And that's when your life starts to reflect exactly what you've always believed, that everything, no matter how it looks in the moment, is always working out for you. Gratitude is the ultimate state of abundance. It's impossible to feel powerless when you're truly grateful. You can't feel fear and gratitude at the same time. You can't feel anger and gratitude at the same time. Gratitude overrides every negative emotion because it shifts your focus from what's missing to what's already here, from what's broken to what's working, from what you lack to what you've been given. And when you combine gratitude with certainty, you create a force inside yourself that becomes magnetic. It attracts opportunity, it attracts people, it attracts solutions because your energy radiates trust, appreciation, and power. Here's what most people miss. Gratitude is not just a nice feeling you experience when life is going well. Gratitude is a discipline. Gratitude is a practice. Gratitude is something you choose in the middle of the storm, not just when the sun is shining. Anyone can be grateful when the money's flowing, when the relationship is perfect, when the opportunities are rolling in. But the real power of gratitude shows up when nothing seems to be working. You're on your knees wondering how you'll make it through. That's when gratitude becomes a weapon. That's when gratitude gives you strength. Because instead of focusing on everything that's falling apart, you choose to anchor yourself in what's still good, what's still possible, what's still alive inside of you. And when you combine that with certainty, the unshakable trust that things are aligning in your favor, you stop living in reaction and start living in creation. Certainty is not about knowing every detail of how things will work out. Certainty is about trusting that they will. It's about holding a vision so strong that no setback can shake it. It's about training your nervous system to feel safe even in uncertainty, because you've decided that uncertainty is not the enemy, it's the pathway. Think about the people you've been most drawn to in your life. Chances are they radiated certainty. They walked into a room and you could feel their presence before they said a word. They weren't arrogant. They weren't forceful. They just carried a sense of, I know where I'm going. I know it's going to work out. That energy is contagious. People want to follow it. People want to be around it. And that kind of certainty comes from a deep belief that life is happening for you, not against you, from a daily practice of gratitude that reinforces that truth. The challenge is most people live in the opposite state. They live in scarcity. They live in fear. They obsess over what's missing, what they don't have, what could go wrong. The problem with that is whatever you focus on expands. If you keep focusing on what's not working, your nervous system collapses, your creativity shuts down, your energy drains, and suddenly you're blind to the opportunities right in front of you. When you choose gratitude, even for the smallest things, your breath, your heartbeat, the fact that you're alive right now, your nervous system shifts. Gratitude puts you in a resourceful state. Gratitude creates possibility. And then when you layer certainty on top of that, you stop asking, what if this doesn't work out? And you start asking, how is this already working for me? That single shift changes everything. Instead of living in worry, you live in expectation. Instead of living in fear, you live in trust. And people can feel that. Life responds to that. Doors open that would have stayed closed if you had been vibrating fear and doubt. Now, I want you to really imagine this. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and starting your day not by grabbing your phone, not by stressing about the to-do list, but by stopping for 5 minutes and just anchoring in gratitude. Feel grateful for the air in your lungs, for the people in your life, the lessons you've learned, even for the struggles that shaped you. And then layer certainty on top of that gratitude. Tell yourself, no matter what happens today, it's working for me. No matter what challenge comes, I'm equipped to handle it. No matter what obstacle shows up, it's not in my way, it's part of my way. Imagine carrying that energy into your day. How differently would you walk? How differently would you talk? How differently would you treat people, approach opportunities, handle problems? That's the power of living in gratitude and certainty. Gratitude gives you the fuel, certainty gives you the direction. Gratitude roots you in the present, certainty pulls you toward the future. Gratitude softens your heart, certainty strengthens your spirit. Together, they make you unshakable. But here's the truth, it's a practice. You don't just wake up one day and suddenly live in gratitude and certainty forever. You condition it, you practice it. You wire it into your nervous system the same way you strengthen a muscle. That means every single day you choose it, you look for reasons to be grateful. You anchor yourself in trust. You remind yourself of all the times in your past when you thought it was over, when you thought you couldn't get through, and yet you did. You survived, you grew, you became stronger. That is evidence. Evidence that everything always has and always will work out for you. And when you live from that evidence, something beautiful happens. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop clinging in desperation. You stop needing life to look a certain way in order to feel okay. Instead, you relax into the flow. You trust the process. You still take massive action. You still move forward, but you're not acting from panic. You're acting from power. Because deep down, you know, not hope, know that everything is aligning exactly as it's supposed to. That level of trust frees you. It frees you from anxiety. It frees you from control. It frees you from the constant need to predict every step. When you're free, you can show up fully. You can give your best. You can love deeper, serve bigger, live louder. Because you're not holding back out of fear of the unknown. You're walking forward in gratitude and certainty, knowing the unknown is your ally. So the question becomes, will you practice this daily? Will you discipline yourself to find gratitude even when it's hard, to hold certainty even when it looks impossible, to trust even when you don't have all the answers? Because if you do, life will meet you at that level of faith. Life will show you again and again that you are right to trust, right to be grateful, right to believe. Because at the end of the day, you live with gratitude and certainty. You stop just surviving life. You start thriving in it. And that's when you finally realize the truth. Everything is always working out for you.